faithfully delivering value and interpreting the best books worldwide. Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, I'm introducing the book titled The Life Imprint of Beijing City. Its author is Hu Renji, an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences and a historical geographer. Beijing City has over 3,000 years of history as a built city, including more than 850 years as a capital. And although this time span is shorter by a few hundred years compared to Chang'an, which served as the capital for 13 dynasties, because these over 800 years as a capital were concentrated in the later part of ancient China, spanning the Qin, Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties, Beijing absorbed many advantages in design, traditions, and architectural styles from ancient Chinese capital constructions, making it a rising star among ancient capitals. So Beijing isn't just a big city, it's a living history book, condensing thousands of years of China's urban development. So today, this book, The Life Imprint of Beijing City, is a well-known work that showcases the city's development process. This book can mainly be divided into 4 parts. First, how Beijing step by step became the capital. Second, how Beijing's water system influenced the capital's development. Third, how are today's familiar Beijing place names and landmarks formed. Fourth, as capitals, what differences exist in urban design between Beijing and Washington? And what reference value do these differences hold for Beijing's development? All right, so next, let's first chat about how Beijing became the capital. Before becoming the capital, Beijing went through a long dormant period. Its original name was Ji, and it served as the capital of Yan, a northern state during the spring and autumn and warring states periods. And so, according to archaeological discoveries, the palace city of Yan back then was about 700 meters south of today's Guang'an Gate. So, the central city of Ji should have been in the area around today's Guang'an Gate. Later, when Qin Shi Huang unified the 6 states, Ji lost its status as a major northern metropolis. However, Ji was situated at the crossroads of the northeast fishing and hunting civilization, the northwest nomadic civilization, and the central plains agricultural civilization, and it has always been a military stronghold where the Central Plains dynasties clashed with northern nomadic tribes. Therefore, from the Qin dynasty to the Tang dynasty, Ji remained one of northern China's important cities. But overall, as a border city during its dormant period, Beijing's national status wasn't very high, so no significant urban relics remain from this phase. Then, during the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period, Beijing entered a critical phase in its urban development. At that time, the Central Plains region was fragmented by warlord conflicts. To gain military support from the powerful Liao Kingdom, later Tang military governor Shi Jingtang ceded strategic border areas including Beijing and Datang in Shanxi to the Liao. Given Beijing's military and economic significance, in 936 AD, Liao's second emperor Taizong, Yelu Daguan, established it as a secondary capital, the southern capital, Nanjing, of Liao. Liao's southern capital developed from the ancient Yan state capital Ji City, hence it was also called Yanjing. However, due to its great age, few remnants of Liao's southern capital remain in modern Beijing. The best preserved Liao structure is the Tianning Temple Pagoda, located on Beijing's West Second Ring Road. If you're interested, you can go see it sometime. After this developmental period, Beijing officially entered its era as a national capital. The first to establish Beijing as a true political center was the Jin Dynasty. In 1125 AD, the Jurchen people from northeastern China founded the Jin Dynasty, successively conquered the powerful Liao and northern Song dynasties, gaining control of northern China. As their territory expanded, choosing a capital location became a pressing issue. Jin's original capital was in present-day Acheng District, Harbin, then called Shangjing Huing Prefecture. The problem was Shanjing's extreme northern location made governing the Central Plains heartland difficult. Thus, in 1151 AD, Jim's fourth emperor, Wanyan Liang, decided to move the capital to Yangjing, today's Beijing. But many ministers opposed abandoning their ancestral lands for distant Yangjing. To persuade opponents, Wanyan Liang ordered planting 200 lotus plants in frigid Shanjing. The outcome was predictable. Not a single lotus survived. Then Wanyan Liang pointedly asked his ministers why they wouldn't grow. A minister colluding with him responded, "Lotuses thrive in warmth. They'd survive if transplanted south to Yanjing." Clearly, Wanyan Liang was signaling the opposition to accept this voluntary move gracefully before forced measures became necessary. What a pity. These stubborn old-timers just wouldn't buy into it. Seeing that soft tactics didn't work, Wanyan Liang decided to get tough. So he directly sent people to dig up the opposition's ancestral graves, moving them to Beijing first. With even their ancestors' graves relocated, these opponents had no choice but to go. In the end, Wanyan Liang successfully completed the capital relocation through forceful means. This marked Beijing's first time becoming the capital of a dynasty. The new capital of the Qing dynasty was called Qin Zhengdu. Its location largely overlapped with Liao's Nanjing, both in the southwest corner of today's Beijing, around Fengtai. But in city layout, it imitated the northern Song capital, Bianliang, which is today's Kaifeng in Henan. Because previously, Liao's Nanjing wasn't a true political center, so the city layout prioritized convenience. For example, for easy water access, the Liao placed the imperial palace in the southwest corner near water sources, not the city center. But now, as the official national capital, political needs clearly outweighed convenience.
So, Qin Zhengdu's planning mirrored the northern Song capital, Bianliang, designed with a three-layer nested structure: the palace city for the emperor, the imperial city for leisure and defense, and the inner city for officials and commoners.
And the palace city where the emperor lived was unquestionably placed at the city center. At the same time, Qin Zhengdu also planned a north-south central axis, with the emperor's residence and main hall aligned along it, symbolizing imperial supremacy. This was almost a major characteristic of all ancient Chinese capitals. Regrettably, Qin Zhengdu existed for only 61 years before being destroyed. In 1215 AD, Qin Zhengdu was invaded by Mongol forces, its palaces burned down, forcing the Qin ruler Xuanzang to move the capital to Bianling. However, the story of Beijing didn't end there. After Qin Zhengdu's destruction, over half a century later, Kublai Khan, the founding emperor of the Yuan Dynasty, decided to shift the emperor's center from Mongolia to the prosperous Central Plains. Thus, Beijing was once again established as the capital of the Yuan Dynasty. In 1267 AD, the Yuan capital was officially completed. We usually call it Yuan Dadu, but Yuan Dadu wasn't built on Qin Chengdu's original site. Instead, it was relocated to the northeastern outskirts of Qin Chengdu. Yep, on Dadu. Pretty much the center of modern Beijing, this capital establishment was hugely significant. You could say the clear outline of today's Beijing was established during the Yuan Dynasty. After the Yuan Dynasty fell, Yuan Dadu was destroyed along with it. Over 50 years later, in 1421 AD, the Ming Dynasty's third emperor, Yongle Emperor Zhu Di, moved the capital from Nanjing to Beijing to resist northern nomadic tribes, building the Forbidden City on Yuan Dadu's imperial ruins. However, the Forbidden City's layout differed from Yuan Dadu. Its structures concentrated east of Zhongnanhai, while Yuan's palaces surrounded this lake. Additionally, differences existed in their north, south, central axes. Early Ming Beijing maintained the three-layer nested structure: Palace City, Imperial City, and Inner City. By mid-Ming, the Mongol Oirat tribe's rise repeatedly threatened Beijing's security. Thus, Emperor Jiajing decided to build new outer walls around Beijing to strengthen defenses. Demonstration: Construction revealed the massive scale, so only a small southern section was completed. This created an additional outer city, the familiar southern city walls that eventually formed Beijing's Second Ring Road. By the Ming era, old Beijing's urban layout had matured, remaining largely unchanged until modern times. From Jun to Ming dynasties, Beijing's location kept shifting. As mentioned earlier, Yuan Dadu wasn't built on Jinjiangdu's ruins but relocated northeast of it. Why was that? This relates to Beijing's hydrological conditions. Now let's explore the book's second topic in detail. Beijing followed the rivers. Actually, nearly all national capitals and major cities are built along waterways. Take France's capital. Paris has the Seine, London has the Thames, China's ancient capitals Chang'an had the Wei River, Nanjing the Yangtze. So why are capitals so closely tied to rivers? The author identifies two crucial reasons. First, waterside construction solved drinking water needs for both imperial compounds and residents. Secondly, developing canal transport can supply the capital with necessary grain and other supplies. Additionally, thriving canal transport boosts the city's economy, and rivers help with drainage, improve local climate, and enhance the city's beauty and comfort. Moreover, rivers provide a timely water source for firefighting. To put it bluntly, ancient cities that lost natural water sources would lose their vitality and become uninhabitable ghost towns. Once rivers as urban infrastructure change, like diverting, drying up, or flooding, cities must adapt or even relocate. Therefore, ancient rulers prioritized water sources when planning capitals. So now let's discuss Beijing's water source issues. Beijing lies at the junction of the Yan Mountains and North China Plain. Rivers flowing through urban and suburban areas originate from northwestern mountains, including the Daqing, Yangding, North Canal, Chaobai, and Jiyun rivers from west to east, known as Beijing's 5 major water systems. Historically, the Yangding River frequently flooded, threatening Beijing's safety, making it a key management target. The North Canal is an artificial canal system built on natural rivers, with today's urban Beijing in its basin, where Jinjiangdu first made Beijing a capital. It was established on Zimago, which is itself a tributary of the North Canal. The Zimagu Canal flowed in from the northwest corner of the city, through the imperial city's west, creating a garden area. Then it flowed out from the south of the city, effectively solving water supply for the royal family and residents. However, Iximagu was just a small river with limited water volume, sufficient for daily use, but relying on it for canal transport between the capital and grain-producing areas was insufficient. At that time, several natural rivers around Jinjiangdu were available, but each had issues, like the Jinku River's slow flow, but it had low water volume, while the Yangding River had ample flow but was prone to flooding. To address canal water needs, Jin Dynasty engineers dug a canal connecting the Jinku and Yangding rivers to boost Jinku's water volume, based on their characteristics. But there was a height difference between Jinku and Yangding rivers. Opening the gates caused silt to flow down, clogging the canal. Later, floods from the Yangding River affected the Jinku River, endangering Beijing. Ultimately, engineers had to fill the canal back in, and the water diversion project failed. Due to unresolved canal transport issues, Jinjiangdu's development was constrained. Until the Jin Dynasty's fall, Jinjiangdu remained a medium-sized city of about 200,000 people. Compared to Yuan Dadu's later population of 1 million, the difference was substantial. Its only remaining hydrological legacy is today's Lotus Pond near Beijing West Station. For the Yuan Dynasty, solving the capital's water problem remained critical. How did they approach it? Simply put, abandon Simagu and redirect to the Guilong River northeast of it. Ironically, this built on Jin Dynasty foundations. During the Jin era, engineers discovered mountain springs upstream of Gaolian River, but found high ground blocking access, so they cut through the barrier to channel water, significantly increasing flow. The mid-lower Gaoliang River formed a depression that filled into Taiye Lake, today's Beihai and Zhongnanhai. After river modifications, This largely met royal and residential water needs, but canal transport pressure was far greater for Yuan Dadu than Jinjiangdu. As mentioned, Jinjiangdu's 200,000 population had limited grain demands, reducing urgency for canal networks. But Yuan Dadu's near million population created massive grain demands, making canal upgrades imperative. In 1291, Yuan rulers followed hydrologist Guo Shoujing's advice to dig Tonghui River, drawing from Bafu, Wenshan-Po, and Jishuitan sources to secure canal transport. Unfortunately, while Tonghui River eased pressure, flood-prone sections remained vulnerable. So, while prioritizing canals, Yuan also developed sea-land transport. This diversification spurred Tianjin's rise as Beijing's southeastern port city. The later Ming and Qing dynasties inherited Yuan Dadu's urban layout, continuing to build their capitals on the Gaolian River system. But after centuries of development, Beijing faced severe water depletion problems. In early Ming, among the three sources supplying Tonghui River, Bafu Spring had dried up. Jishuitan became disconnected from Tonghu River due to Yongle Emperor's imperial city construction. Thus, Wenshan-Po became Tonghui River's sole water source. With drastically reduced supply, Tonghui River frequently silted up. During Ming's two-century rule, authorities repeatedly dredged Tonghui River, but it kept siding up. Eventually, Ming rulers simply gave up on it. They failed to maintain it and abandoned the effort. But by Qing Dynasty, even abandoning efforts wasn't an option, as water scarcity worsened. So, to preserve Beijing's capital status, Qing had to choose: renovate the old city or abandon it, or build a new capital elsewhere. Ultimately, Qing chose compromise, building imperial gardens without relocating the imperial city, sharing political functions to alleviate water pressure. Thus, starting with Emperor Kangxi, Qing rulers established imperial gardens in water-rich western suburbs. Famous sites like Summer Palace and Old Summer Palace were built during this period. Afterward, while the Forbidden City remained the official seat, emperors spent nearly half their time governing from these western gardens. After Emperor Yongzheng's accession, he even added duty offices for Grand Secretariat, 6 ministries, and Grand Council south of Old Summer Palace.
Meaning, these Western gardens became at least half of the political center, naturally relocating many officials.
This greatly eased water pressure around the imperial city, enabling Qing to operate smoothly in Beijing for another 2 centuries. All right, that concludes part 2 on Beijing's hydrological evolution. For part 3, we'll explore how Beijing's familiar place names and landmarks developed step by step. Most representative are Haidian District and Tiananmen Square's creation. First, Haidian District. Today, it's Beijing's most economically vibrant and education-rich area. But it might surprise everyone that until the early Ming Dynasty, this place was just an unremarkable suburban town, a relatively water-rich swamp area. Haidian District truly saw large-scale development during the early Qing Dynasty, precisely when, as we mentioned earlier, the imperial city area was facing water depletion, and the Qing rulers shifted their focus to this water-rich small town to alleviate water pressure. And in 1684 AD, Emperor Kangxi ordered the construction of Changchun Garden beside a shallow lake north of today's Haidian Park, marking the start of Haidian's large-scale development. 4 years later, Changchun Garden was completed, and from then on, Emperor Kangxi spent almost half of each year living there. Shortly after Changchun Garden was built, Emperor Kangxi constructed a group of gardens north of it, gifting the largest one to his 4th son, who later became Emperor Yongzheng. This garden was named Yuan Ming after Emperor Yongzheng's Buddhist Dharma name. Exactly. This garden became the foundation of what would later be known as the Old Summer Palace. Later, Emperor Qianlong, who succeeded Yongzheng, built Changchun Garden and Qichun Garden on this basis, forming the basic layout of the 3 gardens of Yuan Mingyan. After the garden area in Haidian was established, The Qing Dynasty's political center repeatedly shifted towards this region. Thus, many significant events in Qing history occurred here, such as Emperor Kangxi passing away at Qingcheng Garden. Emperor Qianlong received foreign envoys at Yuan Mingyuan, showcasing the nation's prosperity and the garden's splendor, and Emperor Daolong even died there. This partly explains why, during the Second Opium War in 1860, after capturing Beijing, the British and French invaders targeted Yuan Mingyuan for looting, because by then it had become the de facto political center of the Qing dynasty, housing vast collections of imperial artworks and precious texts. In 1912, the Qing dynasty was overthrown, but Haidian district's story continued. In 1921, American architect Henry Murphy fully utilized the remnants of the imperial gardens to design the main campus, Yan Garden, for Yanqing University. After 1949, university department adjustments led Peking University to move into the former Yanqing University site, forming a renowned higher education center with nearby Tsinghua University, Renmin University, and Beijing Normal University. After the 1980s, Zhongguancun in central Haidian, leveraging the district's dense talent resources, developed into a high-tech industrial park, making Haidian a national center for education, technology, and emerging industries. So, after discussing Haidian district, let's now look at the most familiar Tiananmen Square. First, regarding Tiananmen Square's design, it actually follows a design from the northern Song capital, Beijing. The northern Song Palace had a T-shaped imperial square south of the palace complex called Qianbulang. Because Song emperors were generally close to the people, enjoying palace outings during festivals to show unity with citizens. So, one key function of Qianbulang was serving as the imperial path during royal processions. It was also the mandatory route for officials attending court, so government offices were conveniently placed along its east-west sides. But Yuan Dynasty designers didn't allocate sufficient space for Qianbulang in their capital planning. Thus, Yuan rulers relocated Qianbulang from between palace and imperial city to outside the southern imperial gate, today's Tiananmen Square location. Back then, though, Tiananmen Square remained a closed, restricted area with fences and gates, inaccessible to commoners. After Qing's collapse and the Republic's establishment, Qianbulang lost its political function. For transportation convenience, Qianbulang was demolished in 1914, making Tiananmen Square one of Beijing's rare open spaces. And after renovations, the square opened freely to all. During the 1919 May 4th movement, patriotic students urgently needed an open, solemn, symbolic space to voice opinions and promote political ideas.
Taking university students gathered at Tiananmen Square, chanting, "Defend national sovereignty externally, eliminate national traitors internally."
From then on, Beijing's political activities center shifted from the Forbidden City to Tiananmen Square. However, until October 1st, 1949, when the People's Republic held its founding ceremony, Tiananmen Square remained enclosed by walls on three sides. Only after major 1958 renovations did it become the Tiananmen Square we know today. All right, in the first three parts, we focused on Beijing's historical transformations. The final section compares Beijing with Washington, D.C., the U.S. capital. The author does this to contrast similarities and differences, providing reference points for Beijing's future development. The comparison mainly focuses on planning and construction aspects. First, let's examine Washington's site selection. Washington is located at the confluence of the Potomac River and its tributaries in eastern U.S., officially named Washington, District of Columbia. Its location was chosen in 1790 by first U.S. President George Washington and the founding fathers he represented. The city planner was French designer Pierre-Charles L'Enfant. While surveying, L'Enfant noticed a hill at the Potomac Delta's center, then called Jenkins Hill, later Capitol Hill. Thus, L'Enfant centered Washington's east-west axis around Jenkins Hill, Here we see Washington and Beijing share a key similarity. Both feature rigorous central axes, but they differ greatly in design philosophy, urban positioning, and distinctive features. Precisely these differences provide valuable references for Beijing's urban renewal. First, design philosophy. Though both have central axes, Beijing's north-south orientation symbolizes facing south to rule the realm. The imperial city sits at the axis center, representing absolute imperial supremacy. Washington's axis, however, runs east-west. Designed around local geography, its center holds the legislative branch, capital, while the president's residence stands off-axis. This promotes popular sovereignty and elevates rule of law as supreme. Moreover, Washington's capital sits at both axis center and city's highest point, with height restrictions preventing taller buildings. This ensures visibility from anywhere in Washington, reflecting the sacred status of state institutions. In fact, this urban philosophy has gained recognition in our country. For example, Beijing's National Center for the Performing Arts, 2007, adjacent to the Great Hall of the People, was designed with strict height limitations to not surpass it. Now let's discuss urban positioning in Washington. The east-west axis features power institutions like the Capitol and Supreme Court, flanked by the White House, National Archives, Natural History Museum, and other complexes. Additionally, large public space were created downtown for tourists and pedestrians to rest. Free museums plus non-revenue-generating squares mean planners intended the Capitol as a political or cultural center, not economic hub. Thus, even today, New York remains the East Coast's economic center, not Washington. Though adjacent, the two cities never economically overlap or conflict. Such planning showcases soft power while avoiding hyper-concentration issues like overcrowding, pollution, and water scarcity. This clearly offers valuable lessons for Beijing. Finally, regarding urban character. Feudal Beijing's walled imperial city, the emperor's exclusive domain with strict access, was closed and monarch-centered, whereas Washington, D.C. has always been an open city. Even when British forces captured and burned Axis buildings during the 1812 war, this openness remained unchanged. Modern Beijing has since become open too, with Washington's characteristics inspiring its renewal. Post-1949, Beijing developed an east-west axis alongside its traditional north-south one. Centered on Tiananmen Square, it extends along Chang'an Avenue. South of Chang'an Avenue lie political centers like the Great Hall, Mao's Mausoleum, and cultural landmarks like the National Center for the Performing Arts and National Museum. North of Chang'an Avenue, feudal-era altars of land and grain and imperial ancestral temple were converted into public parks beside Tiananmen, blending modern state architecture with open leisure spaces, mirroring Washington's planning ethos as Beijing revitalizes itself. All right, so that's pretty much the essence of the life imprint of Beijing City. But Beijing's development continues, constantly infusing new vitality into its life imprint. This book is a collection of research papers and essays, primarily by Professor Hu Renji, from the 1950s to 1980s, so it only covers Beijing's two central axes. But post-21st century, with rapid urbanization and environmental urgency, planners proposed the two axes, two belts, multiple centers concept. The two axes naturally refer to the two central axes. The double belts mean Eastern Plains Development Belt, fostering high-tech partnerships with Tianjin, Baoding, etc. The Western Mountain Conservation Belt, focusing on ecological protection. And multiple centers means establishing functional hubs to disperse urban pressures like congestion.
Examples include Zhongguancun Tech Hub, Olympic Center, and suburban new towns.
Thus, urban planning expands beyond original boundaries, becoming a regional coordination hub where high-tech and ecology inject fresh vitality. All right, that concludes our journey through the life imprint of Beijing City. Reading notes are below the audio. We'll see you next time.